Hi there, I'm Linda and this is Hutton's Valley Permaculture. We're down on my roadside swale today as my plum tree, which is just down the end there, is loaded with fruit and needs to be harvested. I thought we could have a look through the swale as we wander down there. Now what you'll notice about this swale is it's quite different to my other two. The other two are quite mown down and I do often run my animals through them, but I never run them through this bit here. It actually is the swale that takes the water in off the road and seems to hold water a lot longer than the other two. I think its base is a lot clayier and so the water stays in here longer. And what you find is water-loving plants growing. I've got lots of different reeds coming along the swale and also these beautiful little pink flowers. I don't know what that is. I know someone will be able to tell me. But that seems to love all the moist soil as well. I also find that this little yellow flower, again I'm not sure what it is, some sort of legume, loves to grow here, and I'd bet that would be a nitrogen fixer. Now wandering from the swale to the berm itself, the first trees that are productive, well I hope that one day they will be, are my almond trees. Now this poor almond tree takes a bit of a hit from my cattle as they pass by, and that's because I put my electric fence a little too close and they usually sneak over. The alpacas like to stretch their long necks over the fence as well, and they'll always take a bit of a nibble from this tree as well. And as with the other two swales, my support trees are really taking off this year. And I'll definitely have to make some time to come out and give it all a good chop, because what we'll find is the productive species get a little bit crowded out, and with the humidity we've had lately, you get sort of rotting issues like you've seen with my peach tree. This is the second almond tree, doing much better because it doesn't get the pruning that the other little tree gets. Now it may seem like I've got a lot of support trees, but it's because this can happen, and it seems to happen fairly often. All of a sudden, a tree that's been looking really good and healthy will just up and die. Now I don't know what's happened with this one, but I'll get that chopped down and on the ground as mulch to benefit the soil. Now just past this tree, over here, I've got my pineapple guava, also known as a feijoa. It's just starting to put on some amazing growth. I think it's been loving the warmth and the rain we've been having this summer. Now to my not so happy quince tree. Now this quince tree has struggled for a few years. I haven't done anything to help it. It has still got this spot thing happening on its leaves, but it does have some fresh new leaves which are unaffected with that at this point. I'm just going to leave it for a few years, see how it goes. If it really struggles for a few more years, well, maybe I'll just take it down and put in something else. But, you know, the soil isn't right for it as yet. So I think if we can keep working on the soil, that might help the plant improve and be a bit more resistant to disease. Now, while all those grasses look bad, right up against the plant, it's not as bad as it looks. There is a lot of mulch down there, and there are some grasses growing through, but it's not totally swamping the plant. But I'll need to work on clearing what's there. Just here around this robinia are some black currants which were planted with the help of my local permaculture group. We had a bit of a meeting here and a bit of a wander around, and we just planted as we went. It was a really lovely afternoon and we got some work done as we walked and talked. Here I'm surrounded by two of my fig trees, one that's non-productive and one that is quite productive. The fruit on these don't ripen until sort of about April, and they're sweet and delicious, and it tastes like fig jam right off the tree. Whereas this one, I think all it's going to produce is a load of mulch. Or maybe I could make the most of a really vigorous root system by grafting. Now I'm not sure if you can do it or not, but I might do some research. Perhaps if I could take some of the branches from here and graft it onto this one, we might turn it into a productive tree after all. Just below my fig trees are a couple of rhubarb, which have been here probably a couple of years, and they're doing okay, but would benefit by removal of some of these overhanging branches. I often use rhubarb as a bit of a filler in my swales because I love the lime green and the contrast with the beautiful maroon stems. It's good to have a wander and a bit of observing. Observe and interact is one of the permaculture principles. Right here I've got 2 Tagesasti trees and neither of them are looking very healthy. And they occupy quite a large area really in this swale. One of my thoughts is to take them both out and use all of this material for mulching and put in something that will be productive, plus a few more small support species to support those. So we might put that on the list of things to do. Now, this is my cherry tree, which we've seen in my recent stone fruits video. And while the leaves don't look great, I think we did stop a lot of that cherry slug affecting it. There's lots of new leaves with no signs of damage, and there's not many of the cherry slug left. It could do with a little bit more of a dose of ash, but there's only a few really, so I think it did the job. And now we come down to my pomegranate plant, which each year is getting bigger. And it's got really lovely coloured foliage. I love the reds and the greens. And the orange flowers are just beautiful as well. Now each season I find one of these flowers that starts to look like it's turning into a fruit, but then eventually drops off. I think the plant has to get to a certain size to be able to support those big fruit. Well, that's my thinking anyway. I'm hopeful one day we'll get some pomegranate fruits from this bush. We've got a few yacon plants dotted around and more black currant plants because they're just so easy to propagate. And just along the edge here, with a stick to designate the spot, are different plants that I planted during the year. They're all being bit buried to different degrees. This one is a native red currant plant. I will be coming around soon and doing some clearing and some mulching. This one is a native, I think it's a dogwood. It just produces a nice flower and the pollinators love it. And that's really got a good head start on these grasses. It's not really being overtaken. In here, I've got another red currant plant, which is actually doing quite well. Now they're a bit prickly, so I've got to be careful here. But that's doing quite well. Could be helped along a bit by getting all that weighty grass off it. And just next door to that is a slower growing plant, which I'm actually not too sure what that one is. And this plant is similar, but the mulch around it seems to have done a much better job, and we're getting lots of little shoots down the bottom. Right at the end, we have another plant that's starting to take off. Now, this one might be the dogwood. I'm not too sure of my natives really, and I should get better at that. But as soon as these plants really start to take off like that, they start to shade out the area, and then these grasses will be a lot easier to control. And that brings us to the first of my 2 plum trees. This one's the Mariposa, and as I've mentioned in an earlier video, it really didn't do great this year. Probably not helped by my pruning skills, but it also got a little bit of the cherry slug happening on it. And the fruit just seemed to disappear. I don't know if birds got to it early. It did have some on it to start with, and there is still one fruit hanging on over there, but it's half eaten by birds. So there's no Mariposa plums to harvest this season. So now we find us right at the end of my swale with my productive Satsuma plum tree. First thing we need to do is get all of this netting off it. Yay! Sometimes the netting comes off smoothly, but oftentimes it sticks on things. Now, what I normally do with the netting is fold it up and wrap it up with a tie that's got a label on it that says which tree has come off, because I do leave the posts and the pipe in place for the next season as well. Now, I'll pack that up later. Let's get to the fun part. And the removal of that netting reveals a really laden, long-branched tree that's been weighed down by all these gorgeous, beautiful plums. This branch here was actually supported by the netting, so it hasn't kind of bent over as much as all the rest of them. Now, most of them seem ripe. There's a couple that still are a little underdone, but I'll be taking all of them off and they can just ripen in the house. Now, while I did get in and do some thinning, I didn't thin this branch at all, and all of these plums look a really good size, and certainly no signs of rot here. And I did thin out some of these branches, but the plums don't seem much different to the other side. Now, we have had some, I think, rodents probably getting in here. There's a lot of little bush rats that live in this area, so they've probably enjoyed a few and probably marked a few as well, but most of them seem unblemished. So, grab my basket and my bucket. My bucket's for the ones which will go to the chickens, and this will go to the kitchen. Oh, that's a full basket. We're not half done yet. Now let's see if we can tackle these branches down here. They're long and heavy and have quite a few plums on them. I did thin them out a bit. Oh, we can just see the branch lifting as you take these off. Look under here. Wow, that's a heavy branch. Now this is the branch that was really sitting on the ground. You can tell the difference. There is some signs of a little bit of rotting that's just about to happen. They're not as ripe as the plums that had full sun. So they're just about ripe. But I'll probably be separating these out, making sure that they're okay first, and leaving them to ripen in the house for a bit. Now there's not as many damaged and eaten fruit as I expect, so I'm just going to empty that out there. I will come back with my bucket and collect any of the damaged fruit from around the tree. There's a little bit that's dropped off, so it's best to clear that away, and I'll do that after I've finished the harvest. So I'll put all of this fruit that's not quite ripe into here, have it separate so I know I can leave it sort of straight away. I think that tree must feel relieved. All gone from the tree, but we've got masses here. So now it's all off the tree, what do we do with it? So I'll take it inside, separate out the ripened fruit to the unripe and leave them just at room temperature to ripen further. I'll be sharing some with family and friends to eat fresh, but most of it I'll be just chopping up, getting the stone out and putting in the freezer for the moment. Now some will remain frozen like that and they're great to grab out for like a frozen dessert. You can just have it stewed or just freshly thawed, or something else to do with frozen fruit is to turn it into a fruit sorbet. What I will also be doing with some of it is making 3 different preserves. I've got a plum chutney recipe that I'll share with you in the description, and that's a really lovely recipe. I also make a spiced plum jam, which has got a bit of cinnamon and spices in it. and also a spicy plum sauce with red pepper, some different spices like mustards and cinnamons and cloves and things, and that's really lovely with a bit of pork. So I'm going to be busy this afternoon. I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and I was quite excited to see that none of them were affected with the rot issue that my peach tree had, so it's a relief to get them all off the tree. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for watching, and bye for now.